Lucky you.
36 best
Tuned
holes in
into
golf.
Alternate Shots podcast,
Barney's Army.
where we talk about golf,
Sandy.
poker,
James Bond.
horse racing,
Double.
classic movies.
Zenyatta.
We have no script,
Down the stretch they
and
come.
we are glad you joined us.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Billy Regan, Alternate Shots podcast. I think this is episode 65. We are blessed to have a awesome guest, someone that Colleen and I met as we moved down to Jupiter. Erik Flores, welcome to the podcast, Erik.
Thanks for having me on. And I have to immediately shout out Colleen because she makes some of the best chocolate chip cookies in the world. It's a fact.
She doesn't make them for everybody. Billy's had them, but Billy, have you ever met a chocolate chip cookie that wasn't great?
Many. I have high standards for chocolate chip cookies.
Erik, I know you're over in is it Vienna, Austria?
Yes, I'm currently in Vienna, Austria. Just finished the Challenge Tour event here, which was a lot of fun. It was a great golf course up in the mountains, and probably the hardest walk I've ever had on a golf course ever, which is saying a lot. But made the cut. Didn't play super great on the weekend, but yeah, I mean it's such a cool thing to be able to come over to Europe and be playing in some cool towns and just seeing new things. Vienna is incredible.
You're on your journey to the PGA Tour, which we are hopeful that you get there. What's that like? How does that start? How do you deal with that on a day-to-day basis?
Well, dealing with it, I try to, yeah, just one step at a time, one day at a time. Un día a la vez, my grandma says, one day at a time. And but yeah, I mean, as far as the structure goes, I'm over here playing in Europe because the Corn Ferry Tour last year was the only way, you could really only go to Q School and get on the Corn Ferry Tour. They changed Q School a while back in like 2013 or so, 14 maybe. But I chose to do DP World Tour School last year and got to the finals, but didn't have a great showing. So that landed me on the Challenge Tour, and that feeds into the DP World Tour, as we all know. So it's kind of like the Corn Ferry of the DP World. But with everything shifting, with the whole merger thing going on and involving the Saudi, PIF and all that, we'll kind of see how everything shakes out. But as of right now, currently the DP World Tour has PGA Tour cards that you can get through them. I believe it's the top 10 without current PGA Tour status, because as we all know, a lot of guys play both tours. But also the DP World Tour just has a lot more world ranking points than the Corn Ferry, so that's why I chose to go that route. But yeah, so I mean, it's a bit complicated how it all works out. There's so many limited spots to get on the PGA Tour, and once you have a really good schedule, it's pretty. You have to play pretty bad for a number of years to move down. So I kind of try to explain it to people. Like, imagine applying for a job and they only hire like 50 people a year in the entire sport. So
Right.
it's really difficult to do, but I love doing it. I'm glad to be back doing it, honestly. It beats a day job for sure.
Two questions for you on this. First question is, back to the Vienna tournament, even though you didn't get the outcome that you wanted, I noticed that in the last round, you picked up a half a dozen, maybe a dozen spots. What's that feel like? You're beating a dozen people that you weren't beating on the third round, right? How does that feel?
Laddering up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess every little thing counts. I mean, it wasn't like it was that much more money, but it gets me, one more point or, whatever on the road to Mallorca is the point system. So, you never know. I mean, there's one thing that I'm not going to do, and that's give up, no matter what's going on. So, you try to play the game and do the best you can, and the chips fall where they may, I didn't do anything, out of sorts or more aggressive or less aggressive. I just kind of tried to play my own game, and I actually played pretty solid the last round. It was probably my best round that I played, but not that it was my lowest score. You don't always score how you play, but yeah, needed a little bit of momentum coming out because I felt like I was leaking oil all week. To be honest with you, every round was just like 4 or 5 shots here or there, and that's really the difference. I think the winner shot like 18 under, and 4 shots is a lot around, but I could easily have picked up you know 2 to 4 shots around. Just I felt like I was a little bit sloppy, so uh, it's such a fine line between good and great, on a professional level. I mean,
So
so yeah.
we should come back to that. I want to expand on that. But if you thought what you're doing right now, whether it's the Challenge Tour, the European Challenge Tour, if you took out right now, let's see, Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy, and Ricky Fowler out of the Jupiter Palm Beach Gardens area, right? And then you had
Yeah.
to play everybody else in those zip codes from PGA National up to Jordan's golf course, Grove 23 and Jupiter, and in between the medalists and all those guys, including the assistant pros that you haven't even met. I haven't met. How hard would it be to make it on that tour? The talent in that
I
area.
mean, yeah, I mean, you still got a bunch of pros that you didn't name that live there. I mean, it's like, I mean, it's pretty wild how strong the competition really is everywhere in the world. I mean, especially in Europe. I mean, I would say it's less deep over here on some level, but at the top, you got to play. The people that are winning on these tours every week, Challenge Tour, Corn Ferry Tour, PGA Tour, the Asian tours, I mean, Japanese, all that stuff, live now. I mean, those guys are playing the highest level golf in the world. I mean, if you're winning a golf tournament, you're playing fantastic golf. So, but yeah, there's some really good players down there, and obviously that little tour, the minor league tour down in South Florida. I mean, there's tons of guys that go down and play there that are coming out and playing good on the PGA Tour. Eric Cole is one of those guys recently. Brooks Koepka was, playing down there, back years back, and he went through Challenge Tour this route as well, actually. So, but yeah, it's golf is super elevated right now, and I'm really glad to see the game changing with everything going on. I'm hesitant to say whether it's good or bad. I think that's a little bit, um, not like juvenile for me to think, but it's not about really good and bad. But what I'm saying is like the golf has grown so much as a sport, and there's so much competition now that the game can support more tours and more players to make a living. And there's a larger crowd that wants to, see the sport and watch it live and on TV and all that stuff. So I'm hoping that it expands in a good way. And with everything going on, obviously everybody's in the dark. Me as a player, I'm totally in the dark still. Even the players on the PGA Tour that I've talked to are in the dark of what's going on. But we'll see. We'll see how that shakes out. But it is really cool to see how the sport's advanced.
You make an interesting point about the sport being able to support more than one tour, although there are now. I tend to agree with you that there's room for more than one tour. It doesn't all have to be in one place, but it still needs to be the top players. So they may have to come up with a way that you can play both more than one tour without being banned from the PGA,
Well,
playing for the DP tour or whatever rules they come up with for you players. I think the more opportunity, the better, and the better for the fans.
pretty sure Rory knows more than I do, for sure, more than Billy. But I know there's people that know, and we'll see how everything shakes out. It's just it was a shock to everybody, uh, and sort of not a shock in a lot of ways with all the antitrust lawsuits and different things going on. But all that's over with. It's a little bit of a if you can't beat them, join them situation. We kind of joke a little bit, but I mean, there's some truth to it. Like the PGA Tour is a bit like the mafia. I mean, it's a golf mafia, and they're in control of what's going on. They're the gatekeepers, and it hasn't necessarily been totally run by the players, even though when they split from the PGA of America, that they were run by the players, and it's become big business and it's bureaucracy and it's kind of the natural order of things to progress that way, but I kind of see those players that left, guys like Phil Mickelson and things like that who are veterans. They're essentially partnered with the PIF to kind of regain influence back into the sport, that they love. The golf mafia, the PGA Tour kind of ran into a bigger mafia, which is the PIF. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I just like to see more money in the game coming down to Corn Ferry Tour, obviously Challenge Tour, DP World, and all that stuff. Because it's really, really tough to make a living on the Corn Ferry Tour even today. If you're barely keeping your card, you could keep your job and basically break even or lose money on the year. And they've increased the purses a little bit, but 180,000 sounds like a pretty good deal for a win, which is great. But when you're spending, upwards of 100K a year, maybe more, just on travel expenses and your own, trainers and practice facilities and all that stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
all that adds up, and you still got bills to pay at home. I mean, you got mortgages and families, and it's not easy.
is it
So
cushier on the Corn Ferry Tour or the European Challenge Tour?
well, the purses are definitely bigger on Corn Ferry. I think the Challenge Tour varies between 250,000 to 350,000 euro. Sometimes they pay in dollars, depending where you're at, and then sometimes they pay in whatever South Africa uses. Um, and the Corn Ferry Tour is averaging, I think, 750 now. And then next year, I think they moved to a million. I'm not sure. I'm not playing that tour right now, but $1 million purse, you're looking at $180,000 win.
Brandon Matthews told me the winner usually gets 18% or whatever the purse is, because we're talking about the elevated events, and those are 20 million. So that's how you get to the $3.6 million check. So now
That's
that I
right.
broke the Brandon Matthews, you got two rookies this year, Brandon Matthews and Erik Cole. Why don't you tell me about those two guys? I think you know something, or a little bit more than something, about both of those guys.
Yeah, no, they're great guys. I know Brandon better than Erik, but totally different games, honestly. I mean, Erik's, he's well, nobody's really as long as Brandon Matthews. Brandon's a really long guy, hits it deep, one of the longer guys on tour, and has that style of game. And Erik's, a lot more precision, and we've seen him. He played really well at Bay Hill this year, which was awesome. Kind of breakout week for him. Brandon's a little bit waiting for his breakout week, but I've got faith in his game and what he's doing. He works really hard, and both are great guys. Brandon has a great charity event up in Pennsylvania where he's from that I play in every year, and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, both great dudes. Good to see those guys doing well.
So what's your favorite
Yeah.
Philly cheesesteak now that we're in Pennsylvania? Come on.
I don't know. I honestly I don't eat cheese, which sounds crazy. I'm dairy free, so I haven't had a cheesesteak in quite a while. But so I honestly couldn't tell you. I know it's a terrible, not fun answer, but
So Billy, I did a little research, and I saw that you were in the JFK terminal. Was it last summer? Taking a picture of yourself going to England or Europe to qualify for the British Open. What was that like? And the 150th British Open at St. Andrews, everybody who's at your level or above wants to play there, right?
yeah, that was amazing. That really kind of started me on the European campaign. I decided to come back and do DP World after that whole experience and playing there and playing in Ireland and England, Scotland, all that stuff. Uh, and it was great. I mean, I did it again this year for the 151st. I actually missed by a shot this year, a couple weeks ago at finals, which was totally gutting. Honestly, uh, I fought back really hard. I made 5 birdies coming in on a really, really difficult golf course. It was raining and windy. It was just, I mean, vintage US or Open conditions. Sorry, British Open, the Open. Um, but yeah, both experiences were great. Last year was, a special year because it was the 150th, because it was at St. Andrews. Um, and yeah, I mean, the whole experience was amazing. Totally fell in love with Scotland. Have been back again this year. I was there for a little over a week before I came here to Austria and playing Muirfield and North Berwick again, and then of course Dundonald Links where we had the final qualifying at. the Open. But yeah, I mean, it's such a fun way to play golf. I mean, it just connects you back to the roots and gives you options around the greens and Dundonald was kind of a souped up links course, I would say. The greens were a lot more difficult than most links style courses. Seems like the defensive links courses are the bunkering and the wind and obviously some really deep rough in places. It's not even rough, it's just knee high,
Yeah.
fescue. But uh, there they had kind of all that plus some undulating greens, and it played very difficult and some very long par threes. So it was a lot of fun. Good, really, really good test. So happy to be playing. If you can, I feel like if you're placing top, tens in final qualifying for the British Open, I mean, it's high level golf. There's a lot of really, really good players that are playing. So a lot of people still have to qualify.
So you're
There was a lot of live guys at my event too. I mean,
Yep.
Kokrak was there and a bunch of other guys. So it was cool.
That guy can play. Yeah, so everybody thinks you're just cushy in the golf world and so forth. But I did, again, looking back at some of my notes, I guess the question I want to ask is, what's the difference to you from waiting tables to washing trucks to playing on a PGA Tour? Tell us about that. 'Cause those are some of the jobs you had before what you're doing now, right?
Yeah. I had 7 years off between Corn Ferry Tour starts. Between 2014 and 2021, I got a sponsor exemption into the Veritex, which I'll forever be thankful for. It was awesome. Back when I started playing again. So I had a big break and I did a lot of jobs and yeah, I mean, it's been a bit of an interesting ride to say the least, but all of that's really just made me a lot more thankful to be playing, to doing what I love to do. Uh, it's made me value money in a different way and just kind of like living, what it costs and the value of the dollar. Um, and there's a lot of people working out there and working hard jobs, and to be able to like play golf it's still hard work. And don't get me wrong, is absolutely not all fun and games and, cushy, like you said. But at the same time, like, we get to do something that's entertaining for people, and golf is a great escape for people. It's a social game. It's a game that is mentally challenging. It requires so much focus. Like you kind of forget about what's going on in the world, and that's what I like about the game. You're out in nature and God's creation. It's just like it's awesome. So I get to do that for a living, and whether I'm successful as far as like getting on the PGA Tour and cracking like I'd love to be a top 20 player in the world, top 10 player in the world, but even if that doesn't happen, like it's special to be able to make another run and have people supporting me to do that and believing in me. And yeah, it's been really, really cool. Really, really cool.
The escape word, and I'm going to ask a question and let Billy jump in. The escape word kind of came to me. You probably know Christian Bezadenhout, but I didn't know this about him. And he's a little like Ken Venturi. If you look at Ken Venturi when he was a youngster, and he would have played amateur golf all his life if they let him, because there's more money in being an amateur back in the 50s and it maybe even the 60s than being a pro. He had a big problem speaking. He had a stutter. And apparently Bezadenhout can't have a conversation with one person, let alone a whole bunch of people. And so golf has helped him escape and have a life. Talk about that word escape. People don't realize the benefit of that and what it may have meant to you too.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that about Christian, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know him, but yeah, it is. I mean, it's for me, I've struggled with like anxiety, like really bad anxiety, for a variety of reasons, definitely a few years back. And I turned to like drinking to deal with that. And really what I needed to be doing was playing golf again. And just like, for me, like it's I don't know how to describe it. When you're on a golf course, it's like nothing bad can happen, And I'm not talking about like bogeys or hitting it out of bounds or hitting in the water and worrying about that stuff because that's still real. But I'm talking about like, you know, like panic attacks and stuff like that, where I would just get in such a bad space and mentally, it's like, you go play golf and it's like, oh, like you're just in such a better just frame of mind. So that's been really cool, and it's because I didn't play golf when I was off playing when I wasn't playing those years. I played maybe 2 or 3 times a year in like a charity scramble that I got roped into by a friend that wanted a ringer on the team. I didn't go out to the golf course and practice and play or do anything. I was just like, I didn't even watch golf really. You know what I mean? I was just working and trying to grind away. And so which was silly to do that, but I was just, again, I was in a bad spot. So,
Billy could have used you
uh,
against his nemesis, Paul Lambert, in the junk golf game, right, Billy?
Yeah, he's my ringer.
I would have come out. I would have come out, Billy. You just had to call me up.
Come on over.
But yeah, so golf's a great escape, and that's what I'm saying. Like for non-professionals, it's why people like to watch golf. It's why they like to go out and play, and it's a really cool community to be a part of. And I get to meet people like yourself just in my travels, and just always it's like I feel like I go a lot of places in the world, and I either know somebody there from golf, or I know people that are there from golf or because of golf, and it's just a really cool community to be a part of. And I'm more on the entertainment side, and you know I'm not an instructor, but I could obviously teach some things if I needed to and do clinics and all that. Uh, but it's a really fun side to be on, and it's just such a cool game to be able to play.
It's the only game that amateurs like us can play in the same field as pros like you, which
Yeah,
makes
exactly.
it inviting for amateurs. And once you get the bug, as you know, you got the bug bad. And we all golfers get the bug. There's going to be the day out there where you say, I'm never playing again. And then, you flush a 5-iron and you're like, maybe I can get another round in today. So,
Exactly. We're all sick like that.
yep,
I mean, what Max Homa said on Twitter, he was like, we're all just one swing away from quitting and another swing away from like thinking we can win the Masters. I mean, it's just like
yep.
it's totally ridiculous, and it's such a good challenge to know yourself and
It's a
to
puzzle.
challenge yourself, Yeah, totally.
See,
Totally.
Craig would
So
say, Billy, a good golfer is only one swing thought away from shooting 64 or something like that. I paraphrased it
I
terribly.
would, yeah.
Yeah, Craig Harmon, sorry. Craig
Billy
Harmon. And maybe it was Craig Wood too. Craig Harmon was named after Craig Wood, who was the pro at Wingfoot many years ago. So who taught you or who gave you a tip that you never will forget that made a major difference in how you play golf, or maybe just a life tip?
probably I would say I've had a couple really good tips and things that I kind of repeat to myself. Um, and one of them was a gentleman named Robert Linville, who's still coaching out of North Carolina, which is where I live, but I met him when I was in college at the US Japan matches. But Robert was the coach of the year for D3 schools, I believe, that year. So he had the honor of being the honorary coach for our team. And I was the only freshman on the team that year, and just, talented guy or whatever. He saw it, and he told me after that tournament, he said, just because you can hit every shot doesn't mean you should hit every shot. You know what I mean? Because I was so aggressive and just trying to make birdie from everywhere and all that, and it turns into some big numbers or whatever. But in match play, that was fun, which was what we were doing. But in stroke play, that definitely got me on a few different occasions. But that was one thing that I think was kind of like, wow, that was really good. I still think about that, and I actually still see him since I live in Charlotte. I'll see him from time to time. That was one thing that stuck out to me.
So on an average
Cool.
professional round, and you're in the fairway, how many times would you hit away from the hole, given that kind of thinking, as opposed to just going right at the kamikaze shot down the stack?
It really depends where the pin positions are. there, professional golf is a lot of like 3 to 5 steps away from edges of greens, whether it's, front edge, back edge, right edge, left edge, whatever. Sometimes it's both. So you got to be pretty precise. I kind of have a rule that if I have 8 iron or less in, or even like 9 iron or less, then I can kind of go flag hunting pretty comfortably. I'm still going to aim away though, 1 to 2 paces. I'm always going to give myself an extra pace or two, pretty much. Um, you only get a few green light specials where you're just going, I'm going right at it. It's a middle pin or it's a back middle pin or whatever it is. Of course, you can hit at that flag, but I would say most pros are aiming a step or two left, and the really good guys for other reasons, like they don't want to hit the pin because it could bounce off the pin and go in the water or whatever, which we've all seen those shots. But yeah, I think that's kind of the rule of thumb for me. I'll aim away further if I've got longer clubs in my hand, but yeah, about it.
Have you had a Tiger Woods experience, that 15th hole where he hit a perfect wedge, hit the pin, and it went in the lake in the water? Have you ever
Oh
had
yeah,
something like that?
oh yeah. I mean, I want to say I've seen it all, but then I always see something that I'm like, wow, I haven't seen that yet. Because there's some crazy things if you're playing this game every day. But yeah, no, I've hit flags. I mean, I've hit sprinkler heads next to greens and bounced over the green, making double bogeys, and just like you're just like, you landing it on the edge of the green essentially, and it's totally screwed. But yeah, I've seen some pretty wild stuff, no doubt. Good and bad, I should say. Sometimes you get a lucky bounce.
I caught my own 3-wood once. I banged it off a rock. It went about 100 feet in the air, and I ran over and caught it like a shortstop. Guy I was playing with said, there's something I've never seen before.
I've never heard of that. That's awesome. That's amazing.
So
That's
we're
awesome.
different generations, Billy and I and you. We're kind of a different generation. We will putt the ball. Billy's putt the ball. How far have you putted it from, Billy, to a green from a fairway? How far are you comfortable?
100 yards. My brother two putted 16 west from 186 yards, so it runs in the family.
So Eric, 16 West for the members is a par five. Plays anywhere from 460 to over 500 or whatever. And the Open, they make it a par four. So he hit it down there on the right and what'd you say, Billy? Was he 180, 85?
186 yards. I was standing right next to him.
He did have a bullet shaft in his putter, Eric. He didn't have the typical putter.
Shaft, yeah.
So do you always chip it, even in like Europe, or do you use the ground? How do you go about your short game?
Well, I can't say I would putt it from that far. I mean, I suppose if it was crazy windy and it was appropriate, I'd be afraid of caving my putter face in or something hitting it that hard. Like that's just insane to me. But I mean, I get it. I chip a lot. Um, 10 to 15 yards, what I would say is kind of the max that I would putt something, and that would be like in a links style scenario. Um, maybe longer if it called for it, but I chip the ball mostly. I mean, if the greens are soft enough or they're checking, and it's just something I practice a lot more, and you can get some funny rolls off of. It just doesn't roll true, obviously, on a fairway. Obviously, depends what type of grass it is, but no, I'm gonna chip like, unless I'm right off the green in the fringe, like I'm chipping 90.
Well, you're not
90% of the
likely to
time.
skull it or chili dip a wedge as often as guys like that.
No. I
Yeah.
could see that. I could see the fear of that if that was an issue, that putting, yeah, it's percentage wise at least going to eliminate a bigger number, and that's usually how you improve. As an amateur, is just eliminate mistakes and things like that. That's the most strokes you can gain is usually around the green. Just if you could just get it on and two putt every time, and maybe occasionally get one up and down. I mean, you're gonna improve your game dramatically.
Yeah.
So
Billy and I faced with the same shot on the 71st hole last year that Cam Smith had, where he had looked like a perfect second shot to the road hole, and it ended up short. It didn't go in the road hole bunker, which is like the once in 100,000 didn't get gobbled up by that bunker. Now he's got the bunker right in front of him. What Billy Regan and I would never have thought about was any of the 13 clubs in our bag. We would have had the putter from the fairway, knowing where we were. And we may not have got it 10 feet like he did, but for him to two putt from there has to be one of the greatest two putts in the history of golf.
Yeah, that was really special. Like, cause he used the like lip of the bunker to curve the ball around, and obviously he made the 10-footer that he had. But yeah, and that's one of those scenarios where like that type of grass, that fescue grass, that stuff rolls really good for putting, and it's kind of a thin, wispy grass, and obviously it's mowed tight. So you can get a ball rolling really nice and judge the pace. And that's really the thing that I get more concerned about is the pace of putts from off the green. It's how is it going to come out? Is it going to bump or is it going to come out hot or whatever? But yeah, that was really, really good. That was really good.
If we walk 5 yards further to the tee on 18 in that same group, Cam Smith played 36 holes. After Cam Young hit it to about 12, 14 feet on the green, what do you think's going through his mind? Do you think, hey, he's two behind?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was definitely made it interesting. He needed a Cam to three putt and then he'd have to make it. So he needed like a miss make scenario, which is, where Cam was. I mean, I wouldn't say is likely because how good Cam's putting is, but it definitely made it more exciting coming down the stretch. That's for sure.
So someone told me a story the other day about Claude Harmon. Somebody went into his office years ago and said he wanted to swing like Sam Snead. And he was insistent on wanting to swing like Sam Snead. So Claude said, all right, come on up to the putting green with me. Don't even bring a club. And Claude dropped the ball and kicked it into the hole and said to the guy, now go pick that ball up out of the hole without bending your knees. The guy said, I can't do that. He said, well, Sam Snead can. So get off the Sam Snead stuff.
That's so good. And Sam Snead, he might have had one of my favorite golf swings of all time. That guy was
impact.
Sick. Oh, he was sick. I mean,
who is your favorite golf swing?
It's a tough question. I mean, I like mine. Is that a bad answer? No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's not a bad answer.
If the ball likes yours, it's the perfect answer.
Yeah, exactly. No, Sam Snead was really good. Obviously, Fred Couples' tempo is just so good. I don't know. I mean, those are guys that I like, and Fred Couples really isn't like a technically like super sound swing. Obviously, he gets it in some good positions like every pro, but just watching his tempo is awesome. Ernie Els was always a big fan of Ernie. Yeah, Ernie was awesome. I like the slower tempo guys, or just kind of like silky. I'm a little bit more the same way. I've always just kind of watched that, tried to emulate that.
We're going to do an episode on great swings. So we're looking at the odds for this Open. Who do you like this Open at Hoylake?
Wow. Let's see. I mean, I'm a huge Ricky Fowler fan right now. Obviously, a friend of mine, but he's been playing some great golf this year, and really the end of last year. I think he's doing. I think he's on this other. I think he's on a new level of like life. I think he's entering in like a second part of his career, and I think it's going to be better than his first. That's really what I think. Don't sleep on Fowler.
He's got the good coach.
I mean, he's got Harmon.
He's still working.
Back with Harmon. He's confident. He's obviously been a great putter for a long time. I mean, he's playing great golf.
Who's going to win a big tournament before each other? Tommy Fleetwood or Schauffele? Gosh, I'd bet on those guys and haven't won a dime winning a tournament with those guys. They should win, right?
Yeah, I mean, Fleetwood's a good pick. Yeah, I mean, those guys both. I'm really more surprised that Schauffele hasn't won. Same with Tommy too. I mean, they both were hanging around the U.S. Open as well. So this year at LA Country Club.
Give us your parting thoughts, the toughest golf course or favorite golf course or toughest hole you've ever played.
Oh man, well, one of my favorite courses is definitely Muirfield and then Trump Turnberry. If you're going to Scotland, those are obviously Muirfield's tough to get on, but Turnberry you can walk out there and just buy your way in. But unbelievable views, ridiculous holes. I mean, just the whole situation is spectacular. Highly recommend. And go to Edinburgh when you get a chance. Great city.
Erik, thank you so much. We are rooting extremely hard for your aspirations to the PGA Tour, to getting on that tour. You've got a great golf swing. We saw the similarities with your swing to Sam Snead. I'd put your golf swing up against Brian Harman. He showed a lot of will this weekend against world number 2 and Rory McIlroy and world number 3 and John Rahm at the Open Championship at Hoy Lake. So we wish you all the best, Erik Flores. We hope your aspirations to get onto the PGA Tour come true.
But Robert was the coach of the year for D3 schools, I believe, that year. So he had the honor of being the honorary coach for our team. And I was the only freshman on the team that year, and just, talented guy or whatever. He saw it, and he told me after that tournament, he said, just because you can hit every shot doesn't mean you should hit every shot.
Thanks for joining us today.
Billy Harmon.
We really appreciate your
Double
feedback.
Indemnity.
And please
Arky.
subscribe to the show and hit
Claude
the bell
Harmon.
icon so you get notified.
Movie classics.
New episodes.
Mark Gable.
Hit them
Odd
hard
Job.
and hit them off.
Best 36 holes.